Hey, my name is David, head of product here at CrescoData, and today I'm going to do a demonstration on our new rules builder feature. So within the product sync, what you'll have is a new tab called rules. So click into that, and then we have the ability to add an attribute or to do an override. So global means that this rule will get applied to all destinations. So if you're syncing from, in this instance, Shopify into multiple channels, then you have the ability to do it at an OR level or at an override level. So at an override level, you can then select the different destination channels and create an override. Then it has the ability to add that attribute just for Shopee in this example. But let's have a look at the global level. So we go and add an attribute. From this dropdown, you have a list of attributes that you can create rules for, and I'll go through some of the, more common attributes that you would want to create rules for in this video. So let's start off with title, because that's kind of a common attribute. So inside of title, what we have is the ability in this middle section to be able to create a rule before processing conditions. We have the ability to have a section for conditions, which I'll go through a little bit later on how you can create rules on condition. And then you have the ability to then finally set up a rule after conditions. So there's 3 different sections that you can create a rule for. And then you have on the right here, you have the ability to find a particular product to see how that rule affects that product by SKU, title, brand ID, or Cresco ID. And then that will give you a preview on this right-hand side. So let's add a rule before processing conditions. Let's say what we want to do is we want to append some text onto the title. So under here, we've got the ability to say find an attribute, or based on add an attribute. And then we have the ability to have an action based upon that. So here are all the actions that are available for text fields. So let's say we want to append text like so. And let's say we want it, you could append a source attribute, an attribute, or a constant value. So let's say that we want to append on just a dash, space. And then once we've done that, we also want to then append on brand, like so. And then if we do a refresh on this particular product, then you'll see that the previous value was this, which is the original title. And then the new value now has the space dash space, and then the brand, which is Dealworks. So upon clicking continue and then clicking on save, what it will then require you to do is to refresh all of your products for that rule to take effect. So the rule will happen or will be in place for all products that have been updated since the rule has been saved. But if you want to historically update all products, then you'll have to go and republish all of your products for it to take effect. Now let's have a look at another attribute. So let's say we want to put a rule on publish, which defines if we should be publishing that particular product to a particular destination channel. So what we could do is say if, say SKU contains one of these values. So what you could do is you could say paste in a bunch of SKUs which you may not want to publish or sell on a particular channel. And then what that will do is it will then allow you to then go and define it to be false. So let's have a look at this example here. If we go and find the SKU, which is this, let's say we want to then go and add that SKU to the list. And if we refresh this, then you can now see that it will go and say the publish is now from true to false, which means that that particular product will no longer publish to any of the channels that you have connected. So this would also be the case for like an availability. So you may want to publish it, but you may want the availability to be false, for example. You can do an otherwise, so you can do multiple conditions. Otherwise, if, let's say, brand. So if it's a particular brand that you do not want to sell on to a particular channel, then you can define that. Also contains something, whatever you want to define the brand to be, like Dealworks, for example. And then you would say then false. So when it comes to conditions, once a product has met one of the conditions, then it will not go through the other conditions. So it's important to note that you make sure that you put the, more specific conditions at the top, and then the more wider conditions at the bottom. Otherwise, it will then not move on to the next. And I'll walk through that probably in the stock rule. Okay, so that's that around publishing. What I want to do is then go, let's have a look at some description rules. So, for example, a good example would be a replace. So let's say we want to do a partial replace. So we've got here, we want to replace Dealworks. So this Dealworks with something. So we could say with just deal, for example. And if we refresh that, then you can see that now we have replaced Dealworks with deal. You might want to put a space there. And then you can see that it's now replaced Dealworks with just deal. Another example would be a remove function, so partial remove. So what we may want to do is we may want to remove Dealworks altogether, the word Dealworks. So you can do that, and you can see that now we're just left with pants as the description. So it's a kind of common things that you may want to use or create rules for description for. Another rule, you may want to append some text onto the end. So you may want to append something like material cotton, for example. And then you can see here now it's appended on that piece of text onto the description. So those are kind of some additional common workflows or common rules that you'd use the description rules builder for. Let's have a look at stock quantity. So this is a number field. So the key thing is always to add on the ability to convert it to a number. So this is a good section for conditions. So you can say that if stock quantity is less than, say, 2, then what you want to do is send 0. So a number of so if you're selling on multiple channels, then you may say, well, once stock hits 2, we have a good chance of overselling. So let's just send it as out of stock to prevent such issues from happening. Otherwise, if SKU contains one of text, and then what we want to do is add a value. So let's again get the SKU for our example and add it here. So if it is one of these, then what we want to do is we want to subtract by, say, we want to subtract it by 50%, for example. So if we refresh that, and then we want to, multiplier is true. So you can see now that it has reduced it from 9 to 4 because we are rounding down. So if it should be 4.5, but we always round down to the lowest number. Otherwise, let's say, otherwise we could just say subtract. Sorry, it's not otherwise. If otherwise, we want to then subtract by everything by, say, 25%. So then if we go to the next example, current value is 50, and now we have subtracted 25% of 50 to give us 37. So again, we would then go and look at the first rule. If that rule isn't met for the SKU, then we look at the next condition. If that hasn't been met, then we do a blanket rule across all SKUs to remove 25%. So that's an example of conditional rules. Another key attribute, let's say, for example, we want to look at weight. So again, you could potentially define weight based upon SKU or based upon a certain attribute. But you could also do something where you just want to go and define the weight to always be like 0.1, for example. So if you refresh that, and now all products will have a weight value of 0.1 because a lot of channels require weights and your dimensions. So we've got the height, length, and width that you can define, as well as the units. So if you want to do blanket rules on that, then you can do so. So yeah, that is a quick overview on the rules builder, how you can create rules for specific attributes that you may need to, being able to do things like append text, do a replace, a partial replace, or partial remove, as well as doing things like stock buffers and constant numbers for weights and dimensions. Thanks for watching.